Hello, ladies. This is Dr. Melissa Rich from the podcast, Taking Care of Your Temple. I have an amazing guest here with me, Kristine Koehn, and I will tell you more about her in just a little bit. So this episode, well, every episode, we really talk about improving our relationship with God and improving our physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental health. I always say that in a different order, but it's all four of those, whatever order it comes out in. 4 ways that we do this. One is we keep our focus on God. And there are so many things that are distracting us from that. Do you ever find that?
Oh, amen.
So we have to kind of keep pulling ourselves back, keep rechecking with our spiritual compass and make sure that we are going in the right direction. Second, acknowledging that we are not enough on our own. When I was younger, I used to think that a lot more, that I could do it all by myself. Boy, did I have that knocked out of me. And I have learned that I'm not enough. I'm not smart enough, strong enough, capable enough, whatever enough. I need God's help in, pretty much everything. And I've gotten more okay with that as I got older. Next thing, remembering it is about progress, not about perfection. I will say this is not one I struggle with too much because I've never been a perfectionist. Is that an issue for you?
Major. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a tagline in recovery.
You want
progress,
to be perfect?
not
Oh, okay.
Progress, not perfection.
Okay. Yeah, it's a good one. And then the last one is working on consciously changing our thoughts. Our thoughts determine so much of how we think, how we feel, how we act. And if we keep playing these old, toxic, negative messages to ourselves, we're going to keep doing the same thing. We're going to get the same results. We're going to act the same way, feel the same way. So we need to work on changing those. Okay. So we're going to start off, as I always do, with a prayer. Do you want to pray? Or you want me to?
I'll let you do
okay.
this time.
That's fine. Lord, just thank you so much for this time together. Thank you that Kristine can be here. And I just ask, Lord, that you will bless the words that we say, that you will make them a blessing to all the women who are listening, and that you will allow us to have a positive impact on their lives. Thank you for loving us, Lord, even when we don't deserve it. Amen.
Amen.
Which is like all the time.
All the time.
Okay. So I am, for those of you who are seeing this, I am wearing glasses today. And I don't know if you can see. The reason is because, can you see my pupils? Do I look like I'm high?
Yeah. Wow, they are a little bit dilated.
Yeah, that's because this morning I had an eye exam and they dilated my eyes.
Oh, goodness.
I hate having that done because my eyes are really sensitive to it. They stay dilated all day. And then on top of that, it was in Temple, about 30 minutes away, and I left my contacts there. I had to take them out and left. It's been that kind of day.
Yeah.
And it was raining.
But we're here.
We're here
safely.
We're here. Yeah. So anyway, so I have my glasses, which I probably would have worn anyway because it's easier to navigate. I can't see quite as well. So if you see me doing this, it's because my eyes are dilated. Anyway. Okay. So Kristine Koehn is married to Rick, and they own the Koehn Mortgage Group.
Koehn Mortgage Group.
Group in Waco, Texas. So you have kids, grandkids. Tell us about that, please.
We have 5 kids and 6 grands.
Wow.
Yep. When we got married, there was his and mine. I have 3 and he's got 2. So in between, and we've got 6 grandbabies.
How old are they? Or what's the range
of the kids?
The grandkids.
The grandkids. Oh goodness, 2 months up to 11.
2 months. New one. How
2
fun.
months up to 11 years
How fun. Okay. So one of the things that Kristine does before we get into her story, I want to show you. I'll ask her to bring this. Is she makes these absolutely gorgeous paintings out of old jewelry. I'm trying to get this close so y'all can see, those who are watching on YouTube. So these are just all things that you find like at thrift stores or people give them to you.
Yeah, or that's been donated to me, or just jewelry that I find that I tear apart. And there's a fun story behind that one.
If you would like to tell it, please go ahead.
Oh goodness. Well, a very long story short, Path of Jewels is a Facebook page I created that's got the story on how I got started.
Okay, and it's Path of Jewels.
Yes,
okay,
PATH, Path of Jewels. And so I make memorial pieces. So if someone has lost someone, they can bring me their jewelry, grandma's jewelry, and I tear it apart, but I make things.
Make something, yeah.
So I had never made an art piece for myself. I just hadn't yet. And I thought, well, doggone it. And I've made several of the Santas, but I had sold them or given them, someone commissioned me to make them. So I made that guy for myself, and boy, I was
gorgeous.
proud. I mean, I had him on the wall, and a mutual friend of ours was to have some surgery, and she they required a deposit of some sort at the hospital for it to even get on the schedule.
Right.
So she was having trouble with the funds. And so anyway, I was sitting in my living room one evening and looking at him.
Yeah.
And God said, "That's not yours."
Don't you love it when he does that?
No, I don't at all. At all.
Yeah.
And so he basically just let me know that I was to sell him, that guy, and give the money to
your friend.
To the friend.
Yeah.
And so I talked with another friend of, okay, how can I get the most bang for my buck? How do I do this? You know? Yeah. And so she suggested that we do an auction type thing, or sell raffle tickets, or she came up with all kinds of things. Yeah. And so what we ended up doing was selling raffle type tickets. And so, anyway, so we sold it, I think it was $690. Wow. And so the other friend had come to my home and she said, "Let's get on Facebook Live and we'll call the winner." And so we did. And so I called the winner, and she's a local real estate agent. And while on the live, because I had expressed, I made this for me, he gave him back to me.
Ah.
So I was able to provide some money to the friend and still kept him. And so I ended up making a horse for her, which if you go on the Facebook page, it's really cool horse.
Because you have more pictures of your
all the pictures are on there, but most of the pieces I make are for people. So I don't have, I mean, he and two more are really the only ones I have to show the work. So anyway, God, I was not real happy with God when he told me how to get rid of him, but he gave him back to me. So it worked out. It worked out well. Good. Yeah.
Okay. So, and I know that for those of you who are just listening to the podcast, obviously you can't see it. I have a Facebook page for Taking Care of Your Temple, and I post a Word document for every episode. So I'll have the address to Kristine's Facebook page so that y'all can see that if you want to. So don't worry about if you forget. Okay, so Kristine has a really interesting story, and I've been intrigued by it ever since we met. We are both in a business networking group for women called Women of Waco, and we meet once a month. Part of the program is we all go around and introduce ourselves. We have 20 or 30 seconds to tell a little bit about our business and what we do. Kristine always starts with, "Hi, I'm Kristine, and I'm an alcoholic." And it's definitely an attention getter. And as a former family therapist, it's always just interested me so much that she just owns that. I mean, just goes for it. So, again, I'm impressed by the way that you own your past. So I want to ask some questions about that. What was your family like growing up?
Very, very, very dysfunctional. My dad was a raging alcoholic. My mom was the queen of enabling. And my brother and I just got all the consequences of that. I was abused as a child. It was not a fun childhood at all. No great memories to speak of, really.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
So is your dad, is he still alive? And if so, does he still drink?
No, he passed away last March in 2022.
Yeah.
And he actually stopped drinking 38 years ago.
Okay.
But he never worked a program. So I can tell by your face, I don't have to explain what that means.
I know what that means exactly.
But to someone who doesn't understand what that means, in my world, we call that a dry drunk.
I was just going to say he was a dry drunk. Yeah,
exactly. And so what that means is when with a person who has an addiction, or which alcoholism is an addiction. There are underlying factors that come into play that is the source of this addictive behavior. Yes, it's hereditary. Yes, it's a disease that once activated. But if you take away the drink was my solution. So you take away the drink and then you're just left with a miserable jerk, is what was what a dry drunk is. With all due respect to my dad, I'm not sure he knew better,
Well, 38 years ago.
Yeah. So that was sad for me, especially when I got into recovery in 2012. It was just like, you don't have to feel like that. You don't have to live like that.
Exactly.
But that you can't tell someone how to live their life. So,
and I think that's one of those things that you have to figure out on your own. And
100%, 100% is, and as frustrating as it was for me to go, can you not see how this, how, what a miracle what miracle has happened in my life that you wouldn't go, oh my gosh, I want some of that.
Yes. How did she do that? What happened?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And there was just, I don't know, I know that at least with addiction and alcoholism, pride, ego, those are our biggest offenders. Those are our biggest things to get over. And when you don't, they'll just keep you from doing all kinds of things.
Well, I think that's kind of one of the things I talked about in the beginning, feeling like we're not enough. I think when you have that kind of issue, and it can be alcoholism or just pride or whatever, no, you think you can do it yourself. You don't need anybody's help.
Well, and even, I'm seeing more and more, fill in the blank with, the first step of recovery is admitting you're powerless over, in my world, I'm powerless over alcohol and that my life had become unmanageable. Fill in the blank with alcohol.
You bet.
I admitted I'm powerless over fear. I admitted I'm powerless over resentments, over anger, over shopping, over sex, over whatever the case may be, that everyone's got a vice, And
I never thought about that. Things like anxiety and depression, 100%. Emotional conditions. That really applies. You're right. Had not gone there. So you kind of touched on this. Let me ask you, because again, from my coming from a family therapy background, did that for 28 years. One of the things that I heard a lot of is, alcoholism, it's not the person's, it's not their fault because it's a disease. And then, well, it really is their fault because it's a choice, and it kind of goes back and forth. Do you have an opinion?
Oh, I have a very strong opinion.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things that you can't, it's not my fault that I'm an alcoholic. I didn't, no one wakes up and goes, oh gosh, this is what I want to be when I grow up.
Yep.
This is the kinds of things I want to do to myself and to my family.
Right.
I can remember pouring vodka down my throat in tears because it was something that literally was happening against my will. And that's hard to explain to someone who's never had those type of feelings. But that does not strip someone of the responsibility of the ramifications of such thing. So, for instance, I can remember when I went down to treatment, my husband came down to visit, and we were in a room with a therapist, and he said, my husband said to the therapist, she is the strongest woman I've ever met in my life. Why does she not have, why can't, where's the willpower to just stop this? And I remember that feeling of, oh my God, literally, and I don't say that loosely, oh my God, he doesn't get it. If you think that I'm doing this of my will, then this is bad. This is really bad. And but again, that does not exonerate me from the consequences of my actions. It explains.
Right.
Yes. If you have someone who's in an active addiction, you can hate the disease without hating the person. Not hate. Hate's a strong, you know what I mean? You can dislike the disease. You can want to, but it's, man, it was not of my will. It was not of my will to the extent of on March 14th, 2012, I was ready to take my life. I was done. I was out. I was going to put me out of my family's misery. Because I couldn't stop. I just couldn't stop.
And, a lot of times when people are at that point, because people would think, how could they do that to the rest of us? It's because you really believe that the rest of the world is going to be better off without them, because you become such a burden to them, and you are so much trouble, and they must be so sick of them,
that they would have relief not having to worry about me, deal with me, try to find me, and try to fix me, to, everything was about me, and it just, it was the most painful and the most beautiful day of my life.
And all of that, those beliefs, they are straight from Satan.
Oh, for sure. You don't know it at the time, especially when you're in perception being reality. You don't realize it at the time. You just realize it to be fact.
Yeah, that's your reality right then. And that's what you're operating from. Well, I'm glad that you didn't.
Thank you.
And what happened then? So obviously you were not successful. Did you have a plan? Did you have a method picked out?
I had a plan, and I can't even remember how I got on the phone with this annoying woman that I had met at an AA meeting, and God just used her. God used her, and basically she knew. She said, "Listen, I don't know what you have planned for the rest of your day." She said, "But would you meet me at a meeting?" And of course I tried to weasel my way out of it. And she said, "I don't know what, whatever you're going to do, what's an hour? What's an hour? Can you just give me an hour?"
Yeah, good point.
And so, I agreed to that. And I was living in China Spring, about 15 miles outside of Waco. And so I can remember I was driving into town to meet her. And I was crying so hard, I sounded like a wounded animal.
Yeah, you were.
I was crying in such a way that it scared me. I had never heard those sounds come out of a human being. And so when I pulled up into the parking lot, she was in her car, and she motioned for me to come sit down in her car. So I got in the passenger side, just inconsolable, just beside myself. And she just kind of put her hand on me and just said, "I'm going to give you a moment." And I just remembered, it was just the craziest feeling. And she said, she said this, and I can still hear her now. March will be 12 years. She said, "I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to ask God what he thinks about you."
Man,
can you imagine?
That would have been scary.
Can you imagine?
Yeah. Especially where you were.
Right can you imagine? Now let me tell you what God thinks about me. And so I just kind of sat there for a second. She said, no, out loud.
Oh, even better.
And so again, through the wailing and sobbing, I managed to get the words out. "God, what do you think about me?"
Were you terrified to hear the answer?
I was terrified, period.
Yeah.
And because I thought it was ridiculous. Because I didn't have a perception of God beforehand. And no sooner that the words left my lips that I heard God, as much as you can hear my voice right now, just say 3 words: "You are worthy."
Oh my gosh. I'm getting chills.
And instantly I was calm. I was as calm as I'm talking to you right now. And I remember looking over at her face, and you'd have thought she saw a ghost, because and come to find out, she had sponsored other women before, but had never had them do this exercise. Never. She said, "I don't know where that." She said, "I know where it came from." She said, "But at the time." And so I went up to the meeting, and I changed my sobriety date to March 14, 2012. And I have not so much as put cough syrup in this body since that day. And it was the most bizarre feeling, Melissa. Because I knew I was sober. I knew it was the most. It was now trying to convince my husband when I got home. That was another thing.
Of course,
but I knew I was sober. I had no idea how.
Right.
I wasn't sure who it was who told me I was worthy. She said it was God. I believed her. And so she kind of became a God to me for a minute in my recovery, until I could figure out what and who this was, and why they had a stake in me, and what, you know. And it's just been a beautiful journey of me getting to know getting to know God and a relationship.
That you are worthy in his eyes.
Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, one of my questions was, growing up, was God or church, was that a part of your life?
Not at all. Not at all. I had an idea that there was a God, but that God was for the people who dressed up on Sunday and went to the building with the T on the top of it. That was not for me. I didn't know this at the time, but I can see where I didn't feel worthy or good enough to be in that type of environment with those type of people, because that was my perception. Clearly it was wrong. But no, I had no, which is, it just worked out. It just worked out beautifully because, in my journey of sobriety and recovery, which, are two different things. I remember it was shortly after I got sober that the television show The Bible came on. Roma Downey did this with her husband. Yes. So I can remember watching. I was watching this, and my husband was behind in the kitchen cooking, and I can't remember what they said, but it was something that I had heard kind of sort of in a meeting, and I thought, oh, I wonder if they know that this is, I wonder if they know. And I remember calling who she still today is my sponsor. I called her and I said, did you know that? And she said, no, tell me all about that. I mean, it was beautiful the way she just didn't make me feel dumb, and I anyway, it's just been a beautiful journey of getting to know. So I've only had a relationship with God for going on 12 years.
So that relationship with him started when you became sober?
The minute, March 14th, 2012 at approximately 11:35 a.m. I can tell you exactly.
Okay, who's counting?
No, I can tell you exactly, and I can take you to exactly where I was when I heard his voice, and I've heard his voice since then numerous times. But yeah, that's the day that I got.
So what, and I didn't realize that. So did you find a church? Who discipled you? Your sponsor? Did you find other people?
AA is my church.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And with all due respect to any church out there, I have yet to visit a church where I find as much God as I do in the rooms of recovery. But I have thrown myself into recovery, which again has, the 12th step is, having had a spiritual awakening, we expand our spiritual, knowledge and journey. And so I have branched out into other things as far as, gaining more knowledge and gaining more of the relationship that I want to have. But yeah, it's been a beautiful thing.
Step-by-step journey.
Yeah. Well, and what's even more beautiful is that my kids know God because I'm an alcoholic.
How old were your kids when you became sober?
Oh goodness.
About
12 to 19.
Okay.
My three. Yeah.
Okay.
So they were old enough to.
So they remember you.
Oh yeah.
Drinking.
Oh yeah.
And then when you stopped.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like I said, if you were to interview them, and what's even more beautiful, if you were to interview them and say, listen, I could, wave this wand right now and your mom not be an alcoholic and just go back to that time and just she not be an alcoholic, none of them would have you do that.
Yeah.
Because they recognized that had to happen for me to get where I am today.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing.
It sounds like it is. My mom was not raised in a Christian home. She wasn't an alcoholic, but she describes it as just completely pagan. I mean, God was not in the picture at all. And she was raised by foster parents because her mom had died young and her dad traveled. And it wasn't, like today, it was just, he just asked these people, will you take care of Barb? And they did. I mean, there was no court, anything.
Mm-hmm.
But she became a Christian when she was in college. And then fortunately, she was kind of befriended by some people in the Navigators, and they just discipled her because she said, I knew nothing. I'd never been to church. I didn't know anything. So they taught her about reading her Bible, having a daily quiet time, memorizing scripture. I mean, all this stuff that she had no clue. And I think it's so interesting the way God sends us people to help us where we are to get further
That's
along.
exactly right. That's exactly
So
right.
it sounds like your sponsor and then the AA
Mm-hmm.
group have really been instrumental in that for you.
Oh, 100%. I still, I don't have to. I get to continue to practice that program. I'm in at least 2 meetings a week, and I get to, and here's the deal. I and my husband's just a little bit jealous of that. I get to go into a room with 20 to 30 people who know exactly how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to put that mask on of I'm this person here, I'm this person here. I don't, it's just, and I could do that anywhere in the world. I could find a meeting.
Yes.
I can find my people, anyone that, that I could count on to help save my life,
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's a gift.
It's a wonderful gift.
Yeah.
From that community.
Yeah. Okay. So how old were you when you really started drinking pretty regularly?
Oh, gosh. I had someone the other day ask me, when did you know you were an alcoholic?
That's
it's like
my next question.
There's just, I don't know that, I was in my early mid 40s.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I had drank, and that's what's so cunning, baffling, and powerful about the disease of addiction is that you don't know at what point that switch is going to be flipped, because I would get of course I was a classy drinker. I'd get a box of wine, early on. And that would last me 2 months. I mean, it was not a thing.
Yeah.
And then by the end of my drinking career, I was drinking, 3/4 of a gallon of vodka a day. I mean, to where I would try to stop and I would go into seizures and, so I don't know what activated it. And that's where, in talking with my kids, about addiction, I said, statistically, it runs in the family. And one of you is maybe in line. And so why would you even chance it? Why would you even, because I'm telling you, because once it's activated, there's no turning back until something pretty powerful happens.
I have my own issues. Drinking has never been one of them. And one of the reasons is I realized very early on, I have absolutely no palate for it because I've tried a little bit here and there and it all tastes the same to me. Terrible.
Mm-hmm. No, it does taste terrible. It's what it'll do for you. Coming back.
And I was never able to get to that point. And I remember literally being in college because a lot of my friends drank. And so I had tried a few sips of champagne, tried a margarita. I never could get past the smell of beer to drink that.
Mm-hmm.
Tried some wine, didn't like any of it. And I remember being in my dorm room thinking, okay, I could, if I worked at it, develop a taste for this. I could do that. And then it would be kind of cool, because it looked cool to drink a glass of wine or something. Mm-hmm. And I thought about that for about 30 seconds. And then I remember thinking, wait a minute, I have enough expensive fattening habits. Why would I deliberately add another one? And so that was it. I did.
Well, good. That's good.
Yeah.
I wish it would have worked that way.
I have other issues, but that has just never been one. And I really, like I said, I can't take credit for it. I just don't like the taste.
Right.
It just, blah.
Yep. No, I would agree with you. I didn't like the taste either, but I like the fact that it momentarily got me away from me.
Yeah. No, and I get that. Yeah. It does function. It does do other things for you. So was your family aware of what was going on with you? And I mean, your family, like your mom, dad, and brother, and then your family, your husband and kids. Mm-hmm. And I mean, or were you able to kind of successfuscally hide it? Because a lot of alcoholics do that for years.
Mm-hmm. Well, they think they do that for years.
That's true. That's
true. One of the great discoveries when you get sober is that people knew. Everybody knew.
Yeah.
Everybody knew. And then you weren't fooling nobody. But with me, and just to dive in more to the disease itself, for me, my husband spent tens of thousands of dollars to send me down to a fancy recovery center in Austin. And I came back and I was sober. It was amazing. Until it wasn't, and I did not work a program. I
So you stopped
I
drinking,
went,
but you didn't work a program.
I went, right.
Yeah.
I would go into the rooms of AA, but I did not do what they suggested as far as getting a sponsor and working the steps and all this stuff.
And they're not going to force you to.
No, it's merely a suggestion.
Yeah.
And so by in no time, I found myself, and here's the big part. My drink of choice was Listerine. I know.
Like you just drank it?
Yep. Because I can distinctly remember, and it was years before that lovely time where I had spoken with a recovery doctor down in Temple, and he had said, and this was just a passing conversation, but it stuck in my brain because he had said, "Yeah, we have people in here that get desperate enough they drink mouthwash." And well, no, at the time, I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's so sad. That's disgusting. Who would do that?" No. And I can remember the disease was. I was so sick that I was mad at my husband that he was mad at me. For that's how sad, and
it gets very convoluted.
Yeah, and there's a lot of alcohol in Listerine, 26.7% to be exact.
Really?
Oh yeah. So my last drunk was a Sam-sized bottle of Listerine.
Wow. Well, I had the past couple of years I've been using the alcohol-free mouthwash just because the other stuff, it dries my mouth out more, and I have dry mouth anyway. So but I didn't realize it had that much in it.
A lot.
I guess to make it taste good or something.
Well, yeah, or kill germs, or I don't know what it does, but yeah, people.
So I'm gathering you don't use Listerine anymore.
I don't even have it in my house. Here's the deal. Going on 11 years later, you could be sitting here with a margarita in your hand, and it doesn't bother me a bit. Alcohol was not my problem.
Okay.
Alcohol was not my problem. I was my problem. So I can be anywhere, anytime, and I can be in a room full of people drinking. It doesn't bother me just at all. Now I don't have it in my home. My home is my haven. It's my safe place. It's my so I don't have it in my home. And my husband chose to go along with me and does not drink as well. So I protect myself in that. And if I get into a situation where I do start to feel uncomfortable, I'll just leave. Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're not the shy retiring type. So I can't imagine that being an issue for you.
Nope. Not anymore. I'm not. What you see is what you get.
Were you always that straightforward though? Or was that something that happened after you stopped drinking?
I was, but it was an annoying jerk kind of way. Okay. The difference, and I could, I guess, be perceived as an annoying jerk these days. Not. But the fact of the matter is, I'm just honest. Yes. How I was prior to March 14th, 2012 at approximately 11:35 a.m. Was fake. I was fake. Yeah. I would get you to believe anything to suit my agenda. I was, you put me here and I could be this way. You put me here and, where am I going? I got to put this mask on. And no wonder I was exhausted. I was just thinking that's exhausting, having to be someone else all the time. Mm-hmm. And so now, and when you brought up it initially, when we started, you said, I introduced myself. I literally just this morning had a meeting at a real estate office, and I walked in and I said, "Hey, I'm Kristine. I'm an alcoholic." And, one person said, "Hey, Kristine." But it's one of those things that, I do that because I'm terrified of public speaking. Because I'm convinced everybody's looking at me and judging me and me. Right. Which is silly, but that's still my brain mentality. So when I can just show you what's supposed to be, air quote, the worst thing about me, I'm not afraid of you anymore. Right. I'm not afraid of you. Go ahead and judge me. I've already told you what you would think would be my worst thing when it turns out to be my best thing. And second, I do that so that people can take care of me. You know, if you and I were out at a restaurant just having lunch and I ordered a margarita, you'd go, "I wait, miss, what is happening here?" You would help take care of me.
Yes.
So, you know, and it's amazing because I have found that when I am that forthright about who I am, the other person in turn is that way with me.
Yes.
And it's beautiful.
It opens the door to honest communication.
Soul connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. When two souls are being honest with one another, it's magical.
You know, when you talked about the mask and everything, it reminds me of a song. Are you familiar with the group We the Kingdom?
Mm-hmm.
Their song Cages.
Yes.
I love that because that's what it sounds like. They're just tired of performing and putting on a face.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. And then we wonder why we get home in the evening and we're so tired.
Yes,
you know, it's from all the acting and the being the hypocritus, the hypocrite of not being genuine to yourself. And so now I've just, it's such a bold stand to just be who I am, come what may. You know, I'm not for everybody. That's for sure. I mean, my personality and as forthright as I am just isn't for everybody. And that's okay. You know, that's
not everybody's
okay.
going to like you, but I always feel like I'm not going to like everybody either.
Right.
So,
you know, I certainly try to, but.
And if they don't like me, I always kind of feel like, they're lost.
Right. There you go. So what turned out to be, supposed to be the worst thing about me is something that I'm so grateful for. I can barely stand it.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so your family, that's kind of where we started from, and we circled way around, and that is okay because that's what this is for. So your family, you think, was probably aware of what was going on?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
Oh, sure. But and my husband is the great enabler. I mean, he is, and he knows that, and he went to Al-Anon to help him take care of himself and stop that behavior. But and they were all powerless over me. You know, they would fuss at me and try to get me to do this and try to counsel me and try to shame me, try to guilt me, try to all the things that you try to do when you're trying to control somebody. And it obviously none of it worked. It never does work. If an addict does not have the first initiative to make a change, there is no change that will come about at all.
And, I, again, coming from a counseling background, I've known people who have gone to, for heroin, for drinking, for whatever, like 5, 6, 7 times.
Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I didn't mention all of the detox and all of that I had been to. And that wasn't just
right.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and you do that to shut up the family.
That's what I was
That's
thinking.
why I went down to Austin was just to shut them up because they had an intervention, and said, you've got to make some changes or this, that. So I'll go down here and
make them happy, get them off the back.
It was not, I still did not think I was an alcoholic.
And until you get to that point, until you realize that you have a problem, you're not going to change. Why would you change?
Not a bit.
Because you're fine. If it's everybody else who's kind of getting on your nerves, and if they would leave you alone.
That's exactly right. And it's my life. What does it matter to them?
Yeah.
Which was, again, one of the great lies that I told myself. I had no idea how it was affecting other people.
And I think it's one of those things you might not have wanted to know.
Oh, no, because the guilt, you add on guilt to everything else I was feeling. Gosh, that would have certainly done me in a lot sooner than.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Mm-hmm.
So did the drinking or the issues caused by it, did any of that ever scare you before you admitted that you had a problem?
Oh, heavens. Yeah. Well, the effects of them scared me.
Yeah. That's what I meant.
I would, like I said, if I would go longer, then I would try to stop on my own. And I would get into almost the third day when the seizures would start. Or I would get the DTs where I couldn't write my name, in just one drink. And I was normal,
you were normal.
Right. See, but I remember staunchly that makes me feel normal. I can function. Right. Exactly. So yeah, but like after the first couple of seizures, of course, I got on the intraweb and it had to be multiple sclerosis or, MD.
Right.
There was several different diagnoses that I found
That it could have fit.
that it did fit,
Mhm.
that it did fit. And I was convinced it was one of them. And so, the idea that it was alcohol was the most preposterous asinine thing I ever did hear in my lifetime, at the time. And little did I know, it was, my body was shutting down. I mean, I was murdering it with poison.
It's amazing to me how we can deceive ourselves.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's well, again, I think you said it perfectly. It's all from Satan. But that's where it's like, when you mentioned the addicts being their responsibility, and is it the disease, that's the disease that's where, the family has to literally just sit back and watch until something happens to change the addict's direction. It's just, it's so powerful. It's so powerful.
It is. And it's a hard thing because I haven't worked much with addicts because that's kind of a whole different training and certification, but I've worked a fair amount with families of addicts. And that's one of the things I've had to tell them: until they are ready to admit they have a problem, there's not much you can do.
There's nothing you can do aside from take care of yourself. Well, and it's funny, over the past 11 years of, how often I speak with people that, my brother is going through this, or, my husband this,
sure.
And I'm able to counsel them from the other side to go, you better start taking care of yourself. Get yourself to an Al-Anon meeting, get yourself a sponsor there. I've worked that program. It's been around for so long because it works.
Yes.
And find a way to take care of yourself and stop enabling this person. When they see that you're not carrying their problem around, they're more apt to maybe take a look at it and see if it's theirs.
And I think a lot of people have a hard time distinguishing between enabling and loving and being nice. They kind of confuse those. And I remember my late husband had a real issue. He wasn't drugs or alcohol, but like with anxiety. And so he would have times where he had some agoraphobia, where he had a hard time leaving the house and all that. And he would want me to call in sick for him. And so I got to the point.
That's enabling.
Family therapist. And so I did it a few times. And then he asked me to do it again one day. I said, Ed, I can't do it. This just feels like I'm just enabling you. I can't. And he looked at me and he goes, well, it doesn't feel like enabling to me. It feels like helping. And I'm like,
well, of course it doesn't.
Because look what side of this you're on. And he was very sincere, but so was I, and I didn't do it again.
Well, and people, lying for the addict and making excuses.
Yes.
And, it's in being in denial, of how bad it is and how bad it's going to get. I mean, they, when there is a true addict, and again, I can only speak from a point of alcoholism, it's going to end one of two ways. There's either recovery or an alcoholic death.
Yeah.
That there's no way to decorate that to where it's pretty.
No,
there is. That's just, there's only one of two ways it's going to end.
I knew someone one time who had told me that when he was growing up, his dad was an alcoholic, and they used to, it was the elephant in the living room. Nobody talked about it openly at all, but he grew up cleaning up after his dad. His dad would be passed out on the floor and they'd carry him up to bed. And so finally he said, what stopped all that is they went to a family therapist, and the family therapist said, stop doing that. If he falls down, you let him lay there.
Leave him where he is.
And so they did that one time, and it was just in this pool of vomit, and they left him there overnight. And he woke up the next morning, and he was like, and they just told him, said, we're not doing this anymore. And that's when he started to get better. But you have to. You can't let somebody get better.
Right. Well, and I thank God that social media wasn't as prevalent as it was 11 years ago. Boy, howdy.
No,
but my family was like that as well. I mean, I can distinctly remember my mom literally driving and getting my dad out of a ditch, and calling him to work and stuff like that. And it was never talked about, never talked about in the household. it is a family disease. And, if so, a family member that is in denial is just as sick as the person who's in the addiction.
Yes. Yeah, because they're helping it.
Because they're and they're denying the truth.
Right.
They're denying reality. And anytime you do that, there are consequences that will manifest themselves in your life, physically, mentally, spiritually, all of the above.
And I come from a family systems therapeutic background. And what that means is that we are all part of different overlapping systems. It's a real easy one to understand. So your church group can be a system, your neighborhood, your work, and a lot of these groups intersect and overlap. And one of the things they talk about is that when a change happens with any member of the system, it affects everybody else in the system.
Effect.
You can't help it. And the classic example is mom has stayed home. Now the kids are in school. Mom goes back to work. It affects everybody in the system.
Right.
Dad has to help more. The kids have to do, everything is going to be different, good or bad changes. So drinking is very much a systemic family problem.
Right.
It just is.
Right.
It's not isolated. It's not, you're saying, oh, well, it doesn't affect them. That's nice to believe that, but it's not true.
Right. Well, that's what the disease makes you believe.
Yes, exactly.
But on the flip side of it, when there is recovery, that same beautiful effect happens.
Yes. Although, interestingly, I've known some people who have recovered and family members weren't thrilled and didn't go along with it.
That is, I have experienced that. And someone early on in recovery, and I say this to people all the time that consult me, not everybody's going to go with you. Not everybody's going to get well with you.
No.
And there have been a couple of members of my family that didn't, and my own parents, in witnessing it. And it's that, again, it's very difficult, but in witnessing what happened with me, it's like, why wouldn't you, but I just have to remember, we're each on our own path, and, I can still love them and respect them, and,
and you can be on different journeys.
Completely.
Yeah. I think, again, from the therapeutic standpoint, what I've seen is a lot of times the family has to restructure itself around an alcoholic member, especially if it's a parent. And so when that person gets healthier, then a lot of people have to change their roles in the family, and they've gotten used to doing this, and they may not want to change their roles.
Right.
So I like being the rescuer. I like being the one who makes the decisions. And then also, to be fair, it's like, yeah, you said this before and it didn't work out.
Right.
And I'm not gonna just change everything now because you say that you've stopped using whatever. So
only time can change those relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I think some people, once enough time goes by and they see the person, means that they do change, and then others.
Well, and the way I see it with my, specific family members that I have in mind now, it's they're on their path. God's going to do for what, for them and with them, whatever he's going to do. And it may have nothing to do with me, I had to be on my path. Certain things had to happen for me to get onto the proper path. Who am I to say that they're not going to have to go through the same thing? And like I said, it doesn't have anything to do with me. I would love to take my faith and spirituality and literally shove it down some people's throats so that they could get it. And but that I'm not it. I'm not it.
Well, and the saying, God has no grandchildren.
That's right.
We all have to do it ourselves.
That's right.
Have our own.
And that's painful. Talk about an enabling feeling, right? It's like, I want to do it for you. You don't, I want to
give you some shortcuts.
Right. Yeah. See, but I learned a long time ago too. I have to stay out of God's way. I tell other women this, they're talking to me about their kids, and I'm like, can you just imagine God is just going, would you get out of my way? I am trying to do something with him here, and you keep meddling. And it's like, I can say that, but I can preach it, but practicing it is a hard thing. It's a really hard thing, especially as a mom.
Yeah, especially when I'm going, but Lord, here, I'm just helping out here.
Right.
Just do this.
But I can help you. I can assist, and God's like, that's
got
cute.
it.
Right. I don't need your help. Didn't before, don't now.
Yeah. So much fun.
Staying right sized.
What were some of the best lessons that God taught you through this process?
Oh gosh. I still learn them every single day.
Or is teaching you?
Just the trust factor, I'm so grateful that I have the tools that I was able to get through recovery to be able to pause and to look at my part in a situation. Do I own some of this? Do I need to make an amends? Do I need to step aside? Do I need to, where do I play in? How can I be of service, or how can I take responsibility?
I was going to say, so taking personal responsibility. Big one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And just having faith that even when I look back at the absolute worst times in my life, and I'm thinking, how did I survive that? How did I, that everything has always worked out, that it actually is true, that God will make all things work for the good. That's true. Yeah. Right. And you might go, well, I didn't even know that was a thing. And then when I heard it, I thought, oh, that's true. Oh, that's true. That's really true. Let me tell you about a few things. But he made it for the good.
Yes.
So the faith and personal responsibility probably are the.
And I think one of the things I love about God so much is that he doesn't waste things that happen to us.
Never waste a hurt.
Yeah. And a lot of the things that happen to us may never have been things that we chose. But if we give them to him, he can make good things come out of them. And I think the stumbling block for a lot of people is that the good that comes out of them is not good that we would have chosen.
Well, or and you said it perfectly, if we give them to him.
Yeah. It's hard.
It's very hard.
Yeah.
Because what if he doesn't do it properly? Or what if he doesn't do it on time?
Or the way that I want him
to do it. Or
the
way that I want him to do it.
Yeah.
That's but that's that whole surrender thing, man, and I didn't really even understand what that meant until I was listening to a speaker. And he compared, the surrendering in recovery to a soldier that is, going down a path, and there is a platoon of enemy soldiers that he is confronted with that, says surrender, and they got all their guns pointed at him, and he's got his gun, and he's, realizes he's toast. And so he sets his weapon down, but he keeps his hand on it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's dead. Or he sets his weapon down and he just keeps his eye on it. You're dead.
Yeah.
Surrender is, I set it down, I take my hands off of it,
I back away
and allow whatever's going to happen to happen. And that was when a light bulb came on to me as far as surrendering to the disease of alcoholism. It's you win,
and that goes against every instinct.
I know, but it is the most beautiful thing when you realize you have no power over anything on the planet. It's wonderful.
Yeah. And God has all power.
Right. But if you don't have any type of faith in him, what do you have? Yeah.
You don't have much.
Right.
What would you say to anyone else who is struggling with an alcohol addiction?
There's hope.
That's a good one.
There's hope.
Yeah.
But not until you are ready to seek it and find help. It's easy to find, and it's the most easy, it's the most simple program on the planet. It's just not easy to do, as far as surrendering and admitting that you've, blown up your life or burned down your family or, whatever the case may be. But man, there's such a beautiful life on the other side of it.
When you stopped drinking and, for good, were there relationships that were difficult for you to restore?
Yes, primarily because of the dysfunction and sickness that is still in other people. But what I had to do is I had to own my part.
Yeah.
even if, given whatever the scenario or relationship problem was, if I was 1% responsible, even, I still had to own my part of it. And whether that person owned theirs couldn't be relevant to what I was doing for myself. Is it, we call it cleaning up our side of the street.
Yeah.
Right. As long as I am cleaning up my side of the street, my life stays on the tracks. I mean, I can get along with most people, but to answer your question, no, some relationships were just what they were and still are today.
Yeah.
But I can separate with love, right? And recognize that people are sick.
Yeah.
People are sick. Not even necessarily with addiction. People are spiritually sick.
Oh yeah.
So I can either, just the same way I would deal with someone who's has a cancer diagnosis or something. I wouldn't shame them or guilt them or be angry at them. You have empathy, and you try to be of service where you can, but you also have to take care of yourself.
Yeah. And I think that's a big thing, is that you do your part. And I've told people this so many times, and that's all you can do.
That is all you can do.
They may respond, they may not.
Right.
But you've done all you can do.
Right. And their response is not your responsibility.
Exactly. Yeah. A lot of things are not our responsibility that we tend to think. Okay. Last question. What is the best advice that you can give our listeners on how to stay on the path that God has for them? Because it's a process.
Well, for me, mine is an action. Like every single morning, without fail, since March 15th, 2012, the day after, is spending, I spend an hour, it's usually an hour and a half every morning seeking. I subscribe to quite a few things of readings, and I have my recovery literature, and I have dozens and dozens of things that I get through the night, that in the morning I sit and I usually will share whatever touches me on Facebook. Okay. And that's been a beautiful ministry. But building my foundation for my day so that I can pretty much handle anything that comes my way, as long as I do what I can to stay connected to God.
So you're spending time with God, time in the Word.
Every single morning. And I, it's funny because people will, I don't pray. I have yet to end the conversation with God since that day. And every now and then I can just, in my mind's eye, I can be a bit juvenile. I just imagine him laying the receiver down, going and doing the dishes and going, okay, yeah, no, I know. Okay. Oh, really? Did that what happened? Oh, okay. Just telling me to kind of put me on mute, but I think that's what he wants. He wants that closeness and that relationship, and nothing is too small.
No.
If it matters to me, it matters to him. And just focusing on that connection of, to me, he's daddy.
Yeah.
And Abba. That's, man.
That's what Abba means.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
Daddy. It's not father. It's daddy.
Yeah.
So I get that. And, I have said that so many times, that the fact that we just have open access to God, that he wants us to come. It's not like we're doing it. He says, come, just tell me this stuff.
Don't have to wait till Sunday.
Yes.
Don't have to wait till you come down to the altar. It can be sitting on the toilet.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but it can be in the middle of an argument with a family member. It can be in traffic. It can be sitting at your desk, to where you just say, help me.
And I've kind of likened it to, try to imagine that you are going through the White House, and whoever the president is, don't worry about politics, sees you and says, Kristine, I'm so glad you're here. I've been wanting to talk to you, and here is my personal cell number. Anytime that you have anything that you want to talk about, you just give me a call.
Right.
No matter
I'll fix it. I'll take care of it.
I'm dropping can you imagine?
You're a priority.
Yes.
You are the priority.
You would just be like, what?
Right.
We have the the creator of the universe.
But see,
He's done that for us.
mentally though, us human beings would go, well, I'm not going to bother him. It's not that important. Or
Well, and
I'll call later.
Yeah,
or,
yeah.
he didn't really mean it.
Yeah.
Know, or what have you. We make excuses. And that's where, I did. I mean, it's like, God, you opened up that line of communication.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've had times of doing that with God that I've had to struggle past it. Oh, it's not that big of a deal. I'll just figure this one out on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And let me just say that it never ends well. I've gotten to the point where I'm like, okay, kind of sorry to bother you again, but here it is. And I just do, because that's what he wants us to do. And I'm finding that's a lot quicker and easier to just bring it to him in the beginning than me going ahead and trying to do it myself and then having to go back.
But it's hard to do.
It is hard
because the answer, the answer may not come quickly. It may not come at all, quite frankly.
Or it may not be the answer that I want.
Well, that's just it. And you have to be okay with that.
Yeah. Yes. And that's part of that surrender. Yeah, which we don't like to do.
No, it's, what though, it's a beautiful journey. It
is.
I think that we're we are spiritual beings having a human experience.
Yeah.
We're just we're in the kindergarten of eternity. We're in the training stages, and I think that God allows certain problems to happen so that we can be forged. We can grow through those things. There was one thing that I heard, and it was Rick Warren, which it's a beautiful thing. But I was in my office, and I was only a few weeks sober, and I was listening to one of his sermons, and he said this, and it literally transformed my life. He said, there's not a single thing that has happened in your life that God could not have prevented.
Oh, wow.
And I sat there and I thought, the abuse, the alcoholism in my dad, I mean, I can remember just going, talk about the, that's when I truly experienced acceptance.
Yeah.
And when you can be in the mix of a problem in a situation and just realize that if it's happening for a reason.
Yeah.
And instead of saying, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening for me, maybe? Or what am I to learn? Where's the lesson? Seek out the lesson. How could I learn in this situation?
Well, one of the things that I have learned is that God's way is not always the easiest, the quickest, or the most fun.
No, he makes me say, I'm sorry. Who wants to do that all the time? I purposely behave myself so I don't have to say I'm sorry to people. That's the worst.
But his way is the best.
It is the best way. And his way is, speaking of amends and stuff, is when you have cleaned up that wreckage, that's when you are most like the person he put you on this planet to be.
Yeah.
When you're living in nothing but honesty, nothing but truth. That's when you truly feel a sense of self. And all of us are seeking that.
Yes, that's what we all want.
We're all born with that God-shaped hole.
Yes.
And I just happen to fill mine with alcohol.
Yeah.
I've got people in my life that fill it with drama or anger or anxiety.
Self-sufficiency.
And until you fill that hole with the proper thing, there's always going to be something that's off.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Always.
Because the hole didn't get filled the right way.
And it doesn't have to be like that.
No, but it takes letting go of a lot. Okay. So if people want to follow you on Facebook, Path of Jewels.
Yeah. That's where I do the joy. Yeah. Please go there and read the story.
It's a very cool story.
The way that God just stepped in and saved me yet again from myself. on it was November 12th, 2018, when that whole thing started.
Yep.
And it just, that will forever be another,
Yep.
one of the coolest things in my life.
Right. You have
But Kristine
Facebook.
Koehn, yeah, my personal Facebook page. I'm Kristine Koehn.
And it's KristineKoehn.
That's it.
Okay. Waco, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So they can find that. Do you have like Instagram or anything?
I do, but I just cross share from Facebook is normally what every morning when I first got sober and my sponsor said I should do morning time with God and what have you. I don't read very well. I know how to read, but I'm ADD and just reading is not my favorite thing. And so she said, well, you have social media. Would you share anything that you hadn't read? And I said, of course not. And she said, so I'll tell you what, why don't you seek? And when God gives you the clue, a clue in to share it, because maybe someone else needs to hear what and so every single morning I call it doing my paperwork.
Nice.
So on Facebook every morning without fail for the past almost 11 years, I do my paperwork. So that's all the things that I share in the morning time.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So that is how y'all can follow Kristine. Now, I always give some thought optimizers for the topic, which is we talk about changing our thinking. So you can comment on these. So some of the things that you can tell yourself to change your thinking. I find healthy ways to deal with stress and negative experiences rather than using alcohol or any substance. You could fill in the blank.
Yeah. Anger, depression, anxiety.
Yeah. Sobriety is a journey that takes time. I remind myself of this often.
Yes.
Because we tend to
didn't get into this boat overnight. I mean, this is a lifetime, but it's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Last one, my past no longer has power over me. With God's help, I am moving forward into health and happiness.
Even past that, Melissa, my past is my greatest asset.
Interesting.
Without it, I wouldn't be who I am.
So my past is my greatest asset, but it no longer controls me.
Right.
Okay. I'm going to have to redo that. Hold on. I'm writing.
It no longer haunts me. I don't have closed closet doors that you can pull a skeleton out of. I don't, no, I am, of all the terrible things I did when I was drinking, all of the terrible things I did, I mean, passing out at baseball games and just awful, awful things. I wouldn't take a single minute of it back. Not a single minute of it.
Because look where you came from.
Right.
That. Look where you are now. Look what God has taught you.
So if I were to have shame or regret or sadness over, I would be denying who I am today.
Yeah. No, I get that.
There is a point to the past, that it doesn't have to define who you are today.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can own it. You can own it proudly, because I'm telling you, every single human being, I don't care who they are, has those skeletons in those closets.
And that's one reason I just love the way you introduce yourself. I'm Kristine, I'm an alcoholic, because it's owning it, but it's not letting it control you.
No, not at all. No, and again, I'm a grateful alcoholic. There's a very small percentage of us that survive this disease. And again, the beautiful thing about it is when the reaction with other people, where they seem to let their shoulders down when I say something like that, they seem to kind of take their mask off and put it on the table.
It's very disarming.
Yes. And it's just, it frees them to own something of their self.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So I'm going to end this one, and I always do with some fun facts about Waco, because I love Waco. I think it's a great place to live. So feel free to chime in. This time I'm going to tell you all some famous alumni from Baylor University. And I didn't know this. Willie Nelson.
I did not know he went to Baylor.
Went to Baylor. And some of my favorite Willie songs are Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys. Very favorite, Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain. I could listen to that all day. My heroes have always been cowboys. Do you have any?
Classic.
Yes.
Classic. No, all of those are
those are great.
Wonderful.
Another one is Michael Johnson, retired sprinter, 4 Olympic gold medals, 8 world championship gold medals. I remember seeing him running some of those. Jeff Dunham, ventriloquist, stand-up comedian, and actor. Yeah.
I didn't know that at all.
Yeah. Huh. Robert Griffin III, he won the Heisman Trophy as a senior. I didn't know this one. Adam Richards, 45th governor of Texas.
I didn't know
was
that.
very cool. And then one of my favorites, David Crowder, a singer, he goes by just Crowder. He started writing songs while he was attending Baylor when he realized that over half the students weren't going to church. I mean, that was weird. And some of his songs are Come As You Are, Good God Almighty, and Crushing Snakes. I love Crushing Snakes.
Wow. Yeah.
So just thought that was really fun.
That is fun.
All right, ladies, thank you so much, all of you, for being here, for listening. We enjoyed having this. Be sure and follow Kristine. She's got some good things going on. And see you next time. Bye.
Bye.